Epictetus was a slave. He was owned by another man, and yet he said no one is free who isn't master of himself. That's the puzzle. A man in chains, owned by someone else, but remembered as powerful. How does that work? It's not about what was done to him. It's about what he did with himself every day. That's the case study. Internal freedom, his daily routine. The habits he built, mental sovereignty, radical acceptance, intentional action. That's what made him resilient. Philosophical practice was his weapon. What does freedom mean when your body isn't your own? His mornings, his evenings, they show a kind of strength, a hidden strength, and then there's your routine. What does it show? Who's in charge of your... For the sun, his body was owned, but his mind was his own. Every morning he'd go through a kind of mental preparation. Not planning out tasks, but something else, a quiet review of what the day might bring. It was about strengthening something inside. The idea he worked with is called prohesis. It's a Greek word. It means our faculty of choice, our judgment. He taught that this is the one thing truly up to us. Our body isn't fully ours. Our possessions, our reputation, our health, those can be taken. But our ability to choose our response to any event, that power can't be touched. He wrote that we are disturbed not by things, but by the views we take of them. His morning reflection was about claiming that power. He'd ask himself what was truly within his control that day, his effort, his attitude, his integrity. And what was outside it, the weather, the moods of others, the commands of his owner, drawing that line clearly in his mind at the start of the day, that inoculated him against the chaos to come. Now think about your own morning. For a lot of people, the first act is reaching for the phone, flooding the mind with notifications, news, other people's agendas before it's even formed its own. That's the opposite of the Stoic dawn. It's surrendering your prohesis before you've even gotten up. You begin the day in reaction, not intention. His practice was to build a buffer between the world's demands and his inner peace. He'd mentally rehearse challenges, not with anxiety, but with calm resolve. If someone insults me today, that's their choice. My choice is whether to be offended. If I'm given a difficult task, my choice is to do it with excellence or with resentment. He turned his daily life into a training ground for virtue. The chains on his ankles were real, but he refused to put chains on his own mind. So consider your own first conscious thought. Does it assert a gentle sovereignty over your coming day, or does it immediately hand the keys of your attention to something outside? That quiet space before the world intrudes. That's where you can draw the boundary between what is yours to command and what is not. This simple act of mental separation is the foundation all other freedom is built on. Without it, we're slaves to every passing whim and disturbance, no matter our social status. With it, even in limitation, we have a kind of power, a profound and unshakable power. Epictetus would pause. Before anything happened, he would pause. That was his second discipline, the discipline of assent. It's that space between something happening and your judgment of it. An impression comes in, someone's rude, traffic stopped, a plan fails, and that impression brings a label with it. This is bad, this is unfair. The discipline is catching that label. Before you agree with it, before you stamp it, you examine it. You ask, is this in my control? Is this the whole story? It was his filter, a way to stop the world from deciding his inner state. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "Remember not to be disturbed by the barking of dogs." He didn't mean actual dogs. He meant the noise, the chaos of other people's actions and opinions. Their barking is their business. Your assent, your agreement that the barking should upset you, that's yours. Epictetus said it plainly. It's not things that disturb people. It's their judgments about things, so when his owner spoke harshly, the first impression was a sting, humiliation, anger, but in that pause he could dissect it. This man's mood is outside my control. His words are just sounds. My choice is whether to let those sounds define my worth or my peace. He withheld his assent. From the initial reactive story, now bring it into your day. You're cut off in traffic. The first impression screams that jerk. This is terrible. The discipline inserts a moment of silence. Is this driver's action in my control? No. Does this traffic jam have to command my emotional state for the next hour? Only if I assent. Only if I agree to the judgment that it must. You can notice the frustration, but you choose not to fuel it, not with a story of personal victimhood or a terse email at work. The impression is immediate. They don't respect me. This is an attack. The pause allows other interpretations. They're under pressure. The message was poorly worded, or even if it was intentional, their opinion is their business. They're barking. Your business is your response. Your power is in that sliver of time between the event and your cemented reaction. Think back to yesterday. Or this morning, was there a moment you reacted impulsively? Emotion took the wheel, a sharp reply, a spiral of worry, a burst of irritation. Now rewind that moment. Insert the Epictetus pause, just one breath, one question. Is my current judgment about this absolutely true and helpful? This isn't about becoming passive or emotionless. It's about becoming the author of your responses instead of a scribe, frantically copying down every first draft your impressions hand you. That daily filter transforms a life from constant reaction to chosen action. It turns every minor annoyance, every major setback, from a command into a question. And in that question lies a different kind of freedom. Epictetus chose to practice hardship. He didn't just live with it, he invited it. That was the exercise. A training for the soul, like a fire drill. You practice the route when it's calm, so you know it when there's real pressure. He was building a muscle. The resilience muscle. By sometimes taking the harder path, he inoculated himself against the fear of losing comfort. He wrote that we should come to terms with poverty so that wealth wouldn't disturb us. It wasn't about misery, it was about immunity, immunity to fortune's whims. Seneca did this too. He'd set aside days, wear old clothes, eat plain bread, sleep on a hard bed. He wasn't punishing himself, he was reminding himself. He said he wanted to be in a position where nothing could be taken from him. The goal was to discover he needed far less than he thought, to find sufficiency. This practice dissolves comfort's power. When you know you can handle cold or hunger or simplicity, they lose their terror. They become conditions, not catastrophes. That's the distinction. It's not masochism, not pain for its own sake. It's empowerment. A conscious decision to prove you're stronger than your circumstances. For Epictetus, a slave, this was revolutionary. His owner could command his body but not his peace, because Epictetus had already walked through the fear of deprivation. In his mind and in his practice, he'd made friends with hardship. So what does that look like now in a life of abundance? It's small, intentional choices. Taking a cold shower for the last minute, to feel the shock and then your breath steady, to feel your will over the instinct for ease, skipping a meal and sitting with the hunger. Observing it as a sensation, not an emergency, walking somewhere you'd normally drive, to feel the weather and the effort, leaving your phone in another room for an evening. To sit with your own thoughts. Each act is a vote for inner strength over external convenience. They're rehearsals for resilience. So when an unexpected hardship comes, a setback, a loss, stress, you're not starting from zero. You have a reference point. You've endured discomfort by choice, so you can endure it by necessity. Your confidence isn't theoretical, it's earned. So consider your own day. What small comfort could you forego just for today? Drink only water with your meals, take the stairs, sit in silence for 10 minutes. the act itself is almost irrelevant. The power is in the intention, the quiet declaration that you're not a prisoner to your preferences, that you can choose the harder right over the easier wrong. In that simple, daily choice, you're not building a tolerance for suffering. You're building an unshakable confidence in your own capacity. Epictetus had to carry water from the well. It was a simple chore, but he saw it as a training ground for his most important lesson, the dichotomy of control. It was his daily filter for every single action. He started his handbook with this idea, the Enchiridion. Some things are up to us, he wrote. Some things are not up to us, our opinions, our impulses, our desires. Our aversions, whatever is our own doing, our body, our property, our reputation, our official position, whatever is not our own doing, the task itself, the heavy jug, the long walk. These were not fully his to command. They were duties assigned by his owner, but his effort, his attention to doing it well, his attitude while performing it. These were entirely his own. He could focus on carrying the water steadily without spilling a drop and on maintaining a calm mind, the potential for tripping, for being scolded. For the jug breaking, these were outside his complete control. To worry over them was to waste his power, the only power he truly possessed. This is the practice of equanimity. Not indifference, but a clear-eyed allocation of effort. You pour your full self into what you can influence, and you release your anxiety over what you cannot. This turns mundane labor into a practice of freedom, because you are no longer a puppet of outcomes. You become the master of your own attempt. Now, bring this into a modern context. Think about a work project. Your control lies in the quality of your research, the care of your analysis, the clarity of your communication. You can pour your effort there. The outcome, whether your boss praises it, whether it leads to a promotion, whether a client accepts it, that involves other people's judgments, market conditions. Countless variables outside your command. To tie your peace of mind to that outcome is to hand over your inner stability to a world you cannot dictate. It's a recipe for constant frustration. The Stoic shift is to find your satisfaction in the excellence of the attempt itself, in knowing you did what was within your power well. The result then becomes information, not a verdict on your worth. So here is a simple exercise. One Epictetus would endorse. Take a moment. List 3 things causing you worry or stress right now. Write them down or just hold them in your mind. Now, draw a line down the middle of an imaginary page. On one side, label it within my control. On the other, not within my control. Place each worry into its proper column. Is it a health concern? Your actions, diet, exercise, consulting a professional are in your control. The ultimate diagnosis. The body's specific response is not. Is it a relationship tension? Your communication, your honesty, your boundaries are yours to command. The other person's reaction, their feelings, their choices are not. This act of categorization is not meant to make you passive about the right column. It's meant to liberate your energy, to stop you from exhausting yourself. Trying to manipulate the unmanipulable. It directs your finite strength to the only arena where it can ever be effective, your own judgments and actions. When you do this daily, you start to see every interaction, every chore, every challenge as that walk to the well. You carry what is yours to carry, and you leave the rest by the waterside. His simple meal was another lesson in attention. You picture him sitting there, maybe with a piece of coarse bread, some olives, a cup of water. He wouldn't have been scrolling. He wouldn't have been complaining about the food. He would have just been there, fully present, eating. For the Stoics, nourishment was a natural need. Something to meet, not a stage for luxury or complaint. Musonius Rufus, another Stoic teacher, he argued for simple food. He said it was healthier for the body. Better for the mind. He saw elaborate meals as a distraction, a drain on resources, on attention that could go to philosophy instead. The goal was temperance. To enjoy what was sufficient without being enslaved by wanting more. Marcus Aurelius, in his private writings, he'd remind himself to see things as they are. To strip away the stories, look at the bread, he wrote. See it not as a baked good, but as wheat, sun, rain, the farmer's labor, the baker's work. See the wine as grapes. The work of the vine, that practice, it dissolves a sense of entitlement. It replaces it with a chain of gratitude. You become connected through that meal to the natural world and to human effort. It becomes a gift, not a given, and that transforms a daily necessity. It becomes a moment of philosophy, a philosophical lunch. It's an exercise in presence. In noticing the texture, the taste, the simple fact of being sustained. When you eat with that level of attention, you can't be anxious about the past or the future. You're anchored right here in the present, in the reality of your body being fed. So what does that look like now? It might be choosing one meal, just one. To eat in complete silence, no phone, no screen, no book, just you and the food. Notice the colors on the plate. Chew slowly, taste each thing. When your mind wanders to a worry or a plan, you gently bring it back. Back to the sensation of eating. It's not about austerity for its own sake. It's about reclaiming an act we so often outsource to distraction. We eat while working, while watching, while arguing online. We consume calories without ever truly receiving nourishment. The Stoic lunch breaks that cycle. It's a quiet rebellion against mindless consumption. It asks a simple question, a profound one. When was the last time you ate a meal and actually tasted it? When was the last time you felt genuine gratitude, not for extravagance but for sufficiency? That feeling, that quiet contentment with enough, it's a form of wealth. A wealth no one can take. It's the wealth of a mind at peace with its needs, and it's practiced not in grand gestures, but in the daily, deliberate act of paying attention. To your bread, Epictetus didn't see himself as a slave. He saw himself as a person playing a role. That's the shift, the Stoic shift. There's a word for it, kathikonta. Appropriate actions, duties, actions that fit our nature, rational, social beings, and they fit the specific part we're given to play in the larger scheme. His part was slave, but the power wasn't in the title, it was in the performance. He wrote that we have to act our given part well. What's up to us is to play it skillfully. The script, the other actors, the audience, that's the playwright's business, not the actors. Your business is to say your lines with conviction, with grace. It reframes everything. His duty wasn't to be free from servitude. His duty was to be excellent, right there, in the circumstances he was in, to carry water without resentment, to follow orders without losing himself, to interact with others, even his owner, with a dignity that came from inside. The excellence was an internal standard. A virtue practiced for its own sake, not for praise. His owner might never acknowledge it, the world might never see it, but he would know, and that knowing was the source of his power. A power nothing outside could touch. He was building a character no external condition could corrupt. Now, your own life, what's your primary role right now? Employee, parent, student, caregiver, neighbor, every role has its kathikonta, its appropriate actions. For a parent, it's to guide, to love with patience. For an employee, it's to contribute your skill with diligence, with honesty. The Stoic question isn't, is this the role I wanted? The Stoic question is, how can I perform this role with more virtue today? Excellence detaches from external validation. You're not working hard just for the promotion. You're working hard because it expresses your nature, a capable person, a conscientious person. You're not parenting for the perfect report card or for gratitude. You're parenting because it's your duty to nurture another life. With wisdom, with kindness, the reward shifts. It moves from the outcome to the effort, the quality of your own effort. It transforms things, mundane things. Frustrating tasks, filing paperwork, preparing a meal, a routine meeting. Each one becomes a line in your play, a chance to practice patience, attention. Integrity. Think of a modern example. Two people in customer service. One sees the role as beneath them, a prison of complaints. They do the minimum. Their resentment is palpable. The other takes the Epictetus view. This is my current part. My duty is to listen, to solve problems within my power, to treat each person with respect. They find dignity in the performance itself, in the competent doing of the duty. Who is more free in that moment? The first person is a slave to their own disdain. The second has claimed sovereignty over their attitude. Their power is internal, untouchable. So, your own afternoon of duty. What's one specific task in your primary role today? A difficult conversation, a tedious chore, a stalled project. Set aside the outcome for a moment, how it will be received, whether it will succeed. Focus on the performance. How can you approach it with more presence, more care, more excellence as you define it? Can you listen more fully? Can you add one thoughtful detail? Can you complete it without complaining, even silently to yourself? This is how you rehearse freedom, not by changing the script, by mastering your delivery of it. And in that mastery, you might find the script begins to change on its own. The evening had its own quiet discipline. After the day's work, Epictetus would turn his mind toward acceptance. He practiced what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. This wasn't pessimism. For a slave, it was a tool against fear. He would calmly consider what he still might lose, his health, the few things he owned, even his life. By walking through those possibilities in his mind, he took away their shock. The point wasn't to live in despair, it was to disarm anxiety by facing it. He wanted to see how fragile things were, so he could hold them lightly and appreciate them fully while they lasted. Seneca told his friends to do the same. He wrote that we should set aside days each month to live as if in deep poverty, to rehearse exile or illness, or the loss of status. He said this makes you appreciate what you have, not with a fear of losing it, but with a clear gratitude for its presence. You realize your health, your safety, your relationships, they aren't permanent. They're gifts on loan, and that realization, it doesn't have to make you anxious. It can make you present. It turns ordinary moments into something else. There's a simple exercise from this. Find a quiet moment, maybe at the end of your day. For 2 minutes, close your eyes. Calmly imagine a loss, not with panic. Just observe. Imagine your job was gone tomorrow. Not the drama of how, just the absence, the empty calendar, the quiet house during the day. Feel that space. Then open your eyes, look around, see your current reality again. The work you have in that moment, it's not a burden. It's an opportunity, a structure. It's here. Or think of someone you love. Imagine briefly their absence, not the grief, just the fact of them gone from your daily life. Then let that thought pass. And feel the weight of their presence now, that you can hear their voice or just know they're safe in the world. This practice isn't about inviting sadness. It's about defeating the taken for granted. It's a reset. So ask yourself, what do you have right now, this moment, that you usually treat as a given? Is it the chair you're sitting in, the warmth of your home, the ability to take a deep breath without pain, a friend you could text? Don't just list it. Pause, feel its value, not as an idea, as a tangible, temporary gift. This is how a slave learned to be rich, by knowing what it meant to have nothing. And by choosing each evening to see what he did have. That choice built a gratitude so solid nothing outside could touch it. It was the final brick. In his own fortress, the lamp burned low. He was done with his work, but there was still the nightly review. For Epictetus, this wasn't just thinking back. It was a kind of audit, a real conversation with himself. He'd look at his actions, his reactions, his judgments. He'd hold them up against the principles he taught. Did he act with courage, or did fear make the choice? Did he respond with patience, or did anger take over? This practice was the engine. Without it, philosophy stayed a theory. With it, every day was a lesson. Seneca wrote about this. He said he'd interrogate himself each night. What bad habit did you cure today? What fault did you resist? In what part are you better? He'd ask his soul, where did I go wrong? What did I do? What duty did I leave undone? This wasn't about punishment, it was accountability. The goal was progress, not perfection, to see the gap between what you believe and what you do, and to close it. Tomorrow, you could try a simple version. It doesn't need to be long, just 3 questions asked honestly. First, what did I do well today? Where did I exercise a virtue, even a small one? Maybe you listened when you wanted to interrupt. Or you chose diligence in a task you wanted to rush. Acknowledge that. Second, where did I let an external impression control me? Where did I agree to a judgment that stole my peace? That sharp irritation in traffic, the worry you fed about something in the future, the complaint you voiced instead of accepting a small inconvenience. Don't judge it, just note it, see the pattern. Third, how can I improve tomorrow? Based on what I saw, what's one small, specific adjustment? Maybe it's, I'll take one deep breath before I respond. Or I'll finish the most important task before I check my messages. That turns reflection into preparation. Try it for one night. Sit with those questions for 5 minutes before you sleep. You might be surprised, not about your day, but about the patterns of your own mind. You start to see the recurring scripts, the triggers, the quiet victories. This builds self-awareness, and that's the foundation of all self-command. It's how a slave, through daily discipline, became his own teacher, and how you can start to do the same. Epictetus was owned, his body was owned, but each day he built a palace in his mind, a deliberate architecture. Morning reflection laid the foundation. The discipline of assent built the walls, the practice of hardship reinforced the gates. The evening review secured the inner chambers. These daily habits forged an inner citadel. A place of retreat, so strong no external event could breach its peace. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this. You can retreat into your own soul at any time. Inside there is peace, a peace nothing can disturb if you've built it right. That inner citadel isn't a physical place, it's a state of mind, a settled self-knowledge. A deep reservoir of resilience. It comes from knowing who you are, what you value, what you can endure. That was the ultimate source of his power, even in chains. Now consider 2 people. They receive the same harsh criticism at work. The first person, their sense of self is tied to external validation. The attack feels like a total collapse. Their inner space is fragile, like a house of cards. The criticism is a wind that blows it all down. They become reactive, defensive, or crushed. The second person has cultivated an inner citadel. Through daily practice, they hear the same words. The sting may come, but they retreat for a moment into that fortified inner space. From there, they can examine the criticism calmly. Is there useful truth here, something to use to improve, or is this just the other person's opinion, a bad mood? Their response doesn't come from a shattered ego. It comes from a settled center. They can choose to learn, to clarify, or to let it pass. Their worth isn't on the line. It's anchored deep inside, in their own consistent practice. Your own inner citadel isn't built in a day. It's built brick by brick through daily choices. Each time you pause before reacting, you add a stone to the wall. Each time you choose a small hardship, you reinforce a gate. Each moment of mindful gratitude, you furnish a quiet room within. So visualize your own. What is it made of? Is its foundation your core values or the shifting opinions of others? Are its walls thin and easily shaken, or thickened by the resilience you've practiced? What qualities reside there? Perhaps calm determination, quiet self-respect, unshakable patience. This visualization isn't an escape, it's a blueprint for the person you are choosing day by day to become. And in a world of constant noise, that inner fortress becomes the most powerful possession you will ever own. A slave learns to listen long before he can speak. For Epictetus, restraint in speech wasn't just a social skill. It was a fortress gate. It guarded his most valuable asset, his inner peace. Every word you speak is an expenditure of energy. It's a piece of your soul sent out into the world, and unnecessary speech was a surrender. Gossip, complaint, boasting, argument for its own sake. Each one hands over a fragment of your tranquility to something outside your control. He told his students we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we might listen twice as much as we speak. A physical metaphor for a philosophical truth. True power lies not in being heard, but in understanding. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, placed silence at the very beginning of philosophical training. Before you could learn to speak wisely, you had to learn to be quiet, to observe, to discern. This practice turns listening from a passive act into an active discipline. It's the discipline of receiving the world without immediately judging it, of hearing another person's perspective without rushing to defend your own. When you truly listen, you're gathering information about reality. You're not just waiting for your turn to talk. You're practicing empathy, and you're strengthening your own capacity for patience. For discernment, consider your own conversations. How often is your mind already crafting a reply while the other person is still speaking? How often do you interrupt? Not out of malice, but out of an eager need to contribute, to be seen, to correct. Each time you miss a piece of the world, you trade understanding for self-assertion. And you often stir up internal turmoil, defensiveness, irritation, the anxiety of needing to be right. The Stoic alternative is deliberate silence. It's choosing, in a given moment, to let your speech be scarce and valuable. To ask a clarifying question instead of offering an unsolicited opinion. To let an insult hang in the air unanswered, watching its power evaporate when it finds no purchase. To endure an awkward silence without rushing to fill it with noise. Here's a simple, modern practice. Choose one conversation today, maybe with a colleague or a family member. Commit for just that one exchange to listening with your full attention. Do not formulate your response while they talk. Do not plan your rebuttal. Simply absorb their words, their tone, their emotion. Notice the urge to jump in and gently set it aside. Your only goal is to understand their position so completely that you could explain it back to them to their satisfaction. You'll be amazed at what you hear, not just in their words but in the spaces between them, and you may find the response that eventually comes is wiser, more effective than anything your reactive mind would have produced. This is the hidden power Epictetus cultivated. In a position where his words could be used against him, his silence became a shield. His deep listening became a source of profound insight. He turned a limitation into a superpower. So tonight, reflect. How much of your speech today was necessary? How much was simply noise born from habit or discomfort? The quiet space you create by choosing to listen is where true wisdom begins to grow. The obstacle is the way. That idea, Epictetus lived it long before it was a phrase. His whole life was a testament. Every limitation, every command from his owner, every physical hardship. Those weren't barriers to his philosophy. They were the material of it, a daily alchemy, turning the lead of impediment into the gold of virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote it down in his private journal. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way," and this isn't optimistic denial, it's a shift in perception. A radical one, a cancelled plan, that's not just a disappointment, it's an unexpected gift of time, a chance to practice flexibility, or to take a quiet evening of rest you wouldn't have allowed yourself. An insult, that's not just a personal attack, it's a test of your patience, a chance to practice empathy, to wonder what pain prompted those words, or to strengthen your resolve by refusing to let another's opinion dictate your self-worth. A difficult colleague, they're not just a nuisance, they are a sparring partner for your diplomacy, your creativity, your ability to set boundaries with calm. Each obstacle asks a specific question, not "why is this happening to me?" but "what virtue does this situation require of me?" Is this a chance to practice courage by speaking up? Or perseverance by continuing quietly? Or temperance by walking away? This reframing, it turns the whole world into a gymnasium for the soul. Every frustration becomes a rep. Every setback becomes a new piece of equipment. You stop seeing life as a series of problems to be eliminated. You start seeing it as a curriculum to be mastered. The goal isn't a life without obstacles. That's impossible. The goal is to become the kind of person for whom obstacles are not defeats. They're invitations. So think of a minor frustration from your own week, the traffic jam that made you late, the technology that failed, the person who was rudely dismissive. Now perform the alchemy, reframe it. That traffic jam wasn't a thief of your time. It was a forced pause, a chance to practice patience, to listen to an entire song. To observe the world outside your window without rushing through it. The tech failure wasn't a sabotage. It was a test of your adaptability, a reminder that your peace cannot be held hostage by a machine. The dismissive person, they weren't an assessment of your value, they were a mirror, showing you where you still tie your worth to external validation. In that moment of reframing, you reclaim your power. You stop being a victim of circumstance. You become a student of it. The obstacle ceases to be in your way. It becomes the way forward, the way to a stronger, more resilient you. That's the daily habit Epictetus forged in chains, and it's a habit that can build a different kind of freedom. Starting with your very next minor inconvenience, Epictetus would do this daily check. He'd take stock of his own wants because he saw desire itself as a kind of slavery. So he practiced this as strict economy of attention. He'd look at each longing, each wish, each impulse to avoid something, and he'd ask one question: is this completely within my control? If the answer was no, he'd cut it out, not with regret, like a gardener pulling a weed because it would choke the good plants. This wasn't about suppressing emotion. It was about redirecting that energy toward the only thing we can truly own, our own moral purpose. He taught that freedom comes not from satisfying every desire, but from having fewer desires that have power over you. Happiness, he said, is wanting events to happen as they do happen, not as you wish they would. That's the cornerstone. It's alignment with reality, not a battle. When you want only what's up to you, your effort, your honesty, your courage, you can't be disappointed. The world might withhold everything else, but it can't stop you from being a person of good character. That desire is guaranteed. You can fulfill it the moment you choose to. Now contrast that with the desires behind so much of our anxiety, wanting a promotion. That depends on a manager's decision, a company's budget, a competitor's performance, wanting someone to like you. That depends entirely on their private judgments. Their mood, their history, wanting a luxury car, a perfect vacation, a trouble-free life. These are wishes cast on the water. To chain your happiness to them is to hand the keys of your inner peace to a universe that doesn't care. This doesn't mean you can't prefer these things. The Stoic isn't a robot. You can work for the promotion, be kind to the person, save for the car, but you have to hold that preference lightly. As a preferred outcome, not a demand. Your primary desire, the one that fuels your action, has to be for the virtue you express in the pursuit. You work diligently because that expresses your nature. You are kind because that is right. You save because that is prudent. The external result is then a bonus, not the source of your worth. So here's a practical audit. You can do it right now. Take a piece of paper or just a quiet moment. Write down one specific desire you're carrying today. Make it concrete. Maybe, I want my partner to apologize. Or I want this business deal to close. Or I want to be praised for my work. Now draw a line. On one side, list everything that must happen for that desire to be fulfilled that depends on other people. On luck, on systems outside your command. That list will be long. On the other side, write the single thing that depends solely on you, your own conduct. Your communication, your preparation, your attitude. See where your emotional investment is. Is it tied to that long, uncontrollable list? If so, you've entered a state of anxiety voluntarily. The shift is to transfer the weight, move it from the uncontrollable outcome to the controllable action. Your desire becomes, I want to communicate my feelings with clarity today, without blame, or I want to prepare for this meeting with thoroughness and poise, or I want to do my work to a standard of excellence I respect. These desires are banks. You can deposit your energy into them with a guaranteed return. Your peace is no longer hostage to an apology that may never come, a deal that may fall through, praise that may be withheld. You find your satisfaction in the integrity of your own effort. That's the economy Epictetus mastered. He invested his soul's capital only in ventures he wholly owned. And in doing that, he became wealthy, truly wealthy beyond measure. Epictetus owned his body. That was the one instrument he truly had. He wasn't training for competition. He wasn't shaping it to be seen. His discipline was maintenance. It was about the vessel that carries your mind, your character, your philosophy through the world. A slave's body faces commands, labor, weariness, the possibility of mistreatment. So to neglect that body would be to sabotage yourself, to undermine your own capacity for rational action. The Stoic path here is a middle one. It rejects vanity. It also rejects neglect. You don't pamper the body as an end, but you don't abuse it either. You don't ignore its needs. You care for it so it can serve its function, to be a capable vehicle, a resilient vehicle for your will. Musonius Rufus was clear on this. He taught that physical training is part of philosophy. A proper part, because how can the mind function well if the body is weak, if it's sluggish or constantly ailing? He argued for simple exercise, vigorous exercise. Not for show, but for health, for the stamina to endure, to think clearly, to act decisively when you have to. Seneca wrote about taking regular exercise. Not to exhaustion, but to the point of vigor, to shake off lethargy, to refresh the mind. He saw it as building endurance, the endurance needed for life's real labors. For Epictetus, this care was modest. It was the daily walk, the posture while working, the conscious breath during a difficult task. It was carrying the water jug not with a slouch of resentment, but with a posture of dignity. Turning physical labor into an exercise in presence. Every step became a chance to feel the ground. Every lift became a practice in focused effort. This changes how you see your own routines. That daily walk isn't just about steps on a tracker. It's about maintaining the instrument, clearing the mind's chamber. That basic stretching in the morning isn't a chore. It's a calibration, a way to wake up the vessel so the pilot inside can operate, so the pilot isn't distracted. Even a simple choice, choosing water over a sugary drink. Taking the stairs, that becomes a kind of statement, a vote for the long-term utility of the body over the short-term comfort of a craving. You are maintaining the tool. So consider your own relationship with your physical self. Do you treat your body as an object for appearance, something to be judged or adorned or criticized? Or do you treat it as the necessary vehicle for your character, the hands that do your work, the legs that carry you to where you're needed, the breath that steadies you in a crisis? That shift is profound. When you eat, you are fueling the vehicle. When you move, you are ensuring its reliability. When you rest, you are repairing it for continued service. This isn't about a perfect form. It's about functional stewardship. It's the recognition that your philosophy needs a capable physical host, and that by caring for this host with respect, with simplicity, you honor the life it contains. The purpose it contains. Your body, in this view, stops being a separate project. It becomes your partner in the daily practice of living well. His owner spoke in commands, but inside he had another voice. Epictetus kept a line of philosophy in his mind, like a tool he carried. He'd turn it over while he worked. He wasn't studying for debates in a lecture hall. It was a daily drill for living. The words of Zeno or Chrysippus weren't just theories, they were medicine. For the soul, taken in doses to counter the poison of false impressions. This was practical philosophy, raw, a survival manual written in principles, recited in the quiet between tasks. He told his students philosophy isn't about clever arguments. He said if your brother wrongs you, don't reach for the logic, reach for this, that he's your brother. That you were raised together, that's how you make it practical. You take a general principle and apply it to the specific, raw moment. It's a training regimen. For perception, an athlete trains the body every day for the games. We have to train our judgments for the events of life. Epictetus asked, how can someone who doesn't train daily in logic suddenly reason perfectly? They can't. The mind grows flabby without exercise. Your daily life is the arena. The maxims are your weights. So what does that look like now, with shelves of books but maybe less daily grit? It starts with a single sentence, not a chapter, not a lecture. One Stoic sentence in the morning, read it slow, write it down, carry its question with you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, selfishness." He didn't write it to complain. He wrote it to rehearse his response, to prepare his mind so when he met those behaviors, he wouldn't be surprised. He wouldn't take them personally. He'd see them as natural obstacles on the path, his virtue as the only necessary equipment. Your passage might be simpler. It could be his line, "The obstacle is the way." Or Epictetus reminding you some things are up to us and some are not. Hold that one idea in your pocket all day. When frustration arises, feel for it. When anxiety bubbles up, ask it the question your passage implies. Is this within my control? Does this stand in my way? Or is this the way? That turns philosophy from a subject you know into a lens you see through. The goal isn't to memorize a library. It's to internalize a handful of principles so deeply they arise unbidden when you need them. They become your inner voice. Louder than the noise of complaint or fear. So here's the prompt. What's one Stoic idea you could carry tomorrow? Just one. It might be the dichotomy of control. It might be the view from above, seeing your small worries in the vastness of time and space. It might be the call to love the fate that unfolds. Choose your tool for the day. Then go into your hours and test it, not in theory, but in the minor friction of a delayed appointment, in the sharp tone of a colleague, in the disappointment of a plan changed. Watch how the idea works. Does it create a moment of space? Does it lessen the sting? That's the practice, that daily, deliberate application of wisdom to the raw material of your life. It's how a slave with no books of his own became a master of his mind, by treating each maxim not as a quote to admire, but as a prescription to be lived. Anger was a fire for Epictetus, a slave. That fire could burn down everything inside him. It was a luxury he couldn't afford. An outburst could mean punishment. Or it could mean losing the peace he'd built, so he developed a daily interrogation, a way to disarm anger before it could start. The Stoic view is precise. Anger isn't the first feeling, it's always a reaction. It comes from a judgment, the belief that something bad has happened to you and that it's unjust. That you've been wronged. Seneca wrote a whole book on anger. He called it a brief madness. He said no plague has cost humanity more, but his answer wasn't to suppress it. It was to investigate. When you feel the heat rise, you pause, you ask, what belief is fueling this? What am I telling myself about this event? Usually, it's a story about a broken rule. A should that was violated. I should have been treated fairly. That driver should have been more careful. This person should appreciate my work. The anger is a protest. A demand that the world follow your personal rulebook. The Stoic move is to challenge that rulebook, to examine the should. Is it a law of nature or just your preference? Is this person's action actually within your control? Often, you find the anger is rooted in a desire to control something you were never entitled to control. The other person's behavior, the traffic, the recognition from your boss take a common trigger. You're driving and a car cuts you off, heat flashes. Your heart races. The first story is that jerk. He did that to me on purpose. This is dangerous and unfair. Now insert the pause, interrogate the story. First, can I know his intention? Is it possible he just didn't see me? Maybe he's distracted or rushing or just a poor driver. His action is outside my control. Second, what's my should? The rule I'm enforcing is, people should drive perfectly and courteously at all times. Is that a realistic expectation, or is it a preference for safety that just got disappointed? Third, what is truly within my control right now? My own driving, my own safety, my decision to let the physical reaction pass without feeding it with a story of being wronged. By deconstructing the judgment, you drain the anger. The event stays the same. A car changed lanes abruptly, but your relationship to it changes. It moves from a personal injustice to a simple hazard. A problem for your attention, not a wound to your ego. So think of a recent flash of anger, however small, an impatient comment from a partner, a dismissive email. A long line at the store. Look past the heat and find the judgment. What was the specific should you believed was violated? I should be heard. I should be respected immediately. My time should not be wasted. See that judgment clearly. Then ask gently, is this demand on the world helping me, or is it setting me up for constant frustration? This daily interrogation is how you build immunity, not to the feeling but to its tyranny. You feel the spark, and instead of fanning it, you get curious about where it came from. In that curiosity, there's a power, the power to choose your weather, even when the world outside is stormy. His leg was lame, that was just a fact about him. But Epictetus saw it as a fact about the world. He didn't call it a curse, he called it part of the design, a single thread in a tapestry, and he couldn't see the whole picture. That was his practice, aligning his mind with the order of things, even in suffering. To complain about your circumstances, he taught, is like a foot complaining it's muddy. The foot is part of the body has to go where it needs to go. His lameness was just part of the journey the whole thing was taking. This goes past just enduring something. It becomes a kind of embrace. The Stoics had a name for it. Amor Fati, the love of fate. It's not about liking the pain. It's about seeing every event, every hard twist as necessary. Useful, even. A strand you couldn't pull out without the whole pattern coming apart. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this all the time. He'd remind himself that everything is woven together. A sacred bond. Nothing happens to anyone that they're not built to handle. And nothing happens that isn't, in some hidden way, for the good of the whole. Epictetus put it a different way. He said it was a divine assignment. Zeus gave you your part. Your job is to play it well, whether that part is health or lameness. Plenty or need, the universe in its logic cast you in this specific role, this specific time with these specific challenges. To resent it is to argue with the playwright. To accept it is where you start to find your power within the story. So you take this to a modern life, to a big change you never wanted, a sudden move you didn't choose. A health problem that changes your path, a loss that reshapes everything. The Amor Fati question isn't why did this happen to me? The question is, what can this make of me? What strength does this situation force you to develop? What compassion does it let you understand? What new direction does it shove you toward? One you were too comfortable to see before. A forced move isn't just an upheaval. It's a catalyst for resilience. It's a chance to build a new community, to see a different part of the world, to prove to yourself that home isn't a place, it's your capacity to adapt. To belong somewhere new, a health challenge isn't just a limitation. It's a masterclass in listening to your own body. It reorders your priorities. It can be the very thing that teaches you patience, or deepens your empathy for anyone on a similar path. The event itself is neutral. Its meaning, its necessity in your tapestry, that's something you build with fate. You weave the gold thread of your response through the dark thread of the event. So here's a thing to consider. Look back on one hard event from your past. Not to feel the pain again, but to look at the pattern. Can you trace a line from that event to a strength you have now, to a relationship you formed, to a perspective you'd never have gotten any other way? Maybe a failure led you to a more honest career. A heartbreak taught you where your self-respect draws the line. A time alone fostered a deep independence. Try for a minute to see that event not as a random blow, but as a necessary thread. Without it, the person you are today, with your specific insights, your specific compassion, your specific resilience, that person wouldn't exist. The tapestry would be different. You would be different. This isn't about making excuses for suffering. It's about taking back your story, moving from seeing yourself as a victim of chaos to seeing yourself as part of a grand, mysterious, rational order. That shift, if you practice it daily, that's the deepest acceptance. It's how a lame slave could look at his own body and see not a prison, but his particular, indispensable role. In the whole magnificent play of existence, the common image is a stern philosopher, but Epictetus talked about kindness as a daily discipline. His master could be harsh. His fellow slaves were weary, the world was indifferent, and he taught that dealing with difficult people wasn't a distraction from philosophy. It was the heart of its practice. He saw anger as a kind of ignorance. When someone acts poorly, it's because they're mistaken about what is good. They believe their rude action or their greed or their insult will benefit them. And your duty isn't to mirror that error with rage. It's to meet their confusion with clarity. That transforms kindness. It becomes a rational act, the logical response of one reasoning being to another who's lost their way. Marcus Aurelius began his days with this preparation. Today I shall meet with men who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He didn't write that to fuel resentment. He wrote it to build immunity, to remind himself these traits spring from ignorance, ignorance of what is good and evil. And because they stem from ignorance, they can't harm his own character, not unless he chooses to let them. He saw these difficult people as training partners. For his patience, for his justice, for his own understanding, your character isn't damaged by the actions of others, only by your own reactions. That's the Stoic shield. It lets you engage with the world's roughness without becoming rough yourself. So how do you practice this? It starts with a simple, internal gesture. When someone irritates you, a demanding coworker, a thoughtless stranger, a relative who always complains, you pause. Before your judgment hardens, you offer a silent wish for their well-being. Not because they deserve it, but because it realigns your own perspective. You recognize them as a fellow human, subject to error and suffering just as you are. That mental act of goodwill severs the link between their behavior and your inner peace. It asserts that your virtue isn't contingent on their virtue. You might think, may they find clarity or may their suffering lessen. The specific words matter less than the intention to see the human behind the offense. Now take it a step further into action. Your challenge is to perform one small, anonymous act of kindness today. Pay for the coffee of the person behind you in line. Leave a genuine compliment on a colleague's desk without signing it. Help someone struggling with a heavy bag. The key is to do it without any expectation of thanks or recognition. Do it as an exercise in virtue for its own sake, a private confirmation that your capacity for good is entirely within your control. This act, however tiny, is a brick in the inner citadel. It proves to you that your power to affect the world positively is never locked away. It's always at hand. In a life that once belonged to another, Epictetus cultivated this gentle sovereignty over his own capacity for kindness. And in doing so, he remained undiminished, no matter who stood before him. A slave's reputation didn't matter in the marketplace. his power came from somewhere else. It came from the quiet alignment of his actions with his beliefs, whether anyone saw it or not. That's the Stoic distinction, being virtuous versus seeming virtuous. For Epictetus, the theatrics of goodness were a trap. Wanting praise, wanting to be seen as wise or disciplined, that was just another kind of slavery. It handed your self-assessment over to other people, to their applause or their criticism. He told his students not to talk too much about their principles in public. Don't parade your wisdom, he said, live it quietly. Let your actions speak from inside the house of your character. The only audience that really matters is your own reasoned self. Your inner guide, holding you to the standard you claim to value. That daily commitment to integrity, that's what forges an unshakable identity. It's the difference between building a facade for the world and building a foundation for your soul. You can see the modern parallel. It's one thing to post a thoughtful quote about mindfulness, to curate an image of calm on a social feed. It's something entirely different to practice that patience in a stressful moment when no one's watching. When you're alone in traffic, or when a family member irritates you behind closed doors and you choose to breathe instead of snap, that silent choice, unseen and unpraised, that's where real character is built. The online post might earn you likes, a semblance of virtue. The private breath earns you self-respect, the substance of it. So where does that gap exist for you? Where's the widest space between the person you present to the world and the person you are in the quiet, unobserved moments of your day? Is it in your generosity, which flows freely when it's noticed but dries up when it's anonymous? Is it in your honesty, easy when it's convenient but bending when you think no one will find out? That gap isn't a condemnation, it's a map. It shows you exactly where your next practice lies. The goal isn't to perform for an audience of billions or for an audience of one. The goal is to dissolve the audience altogether, to act from such a settled place of principle that the question of who's watching just stops mattering. Your virtue becomes a private truth, a personal North Star, and in that truth you find a power no reputation can ever give you or take away. For a slave, death was always there. Thinking about it wasn't morbid, it was practical, a sharpening stone for the mind. Epictetus taught to keep death and exile before your eyes every day. Not to live in fear, to live without illusion, to see what's truly yours and what's only on loan. That daily remembrance strips away the trivial. It asks a relentless question. If this were your last day, would this worry matter? Would this argument, this resentment? Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal to let each action be your last, to spend your life in calm readiness, greeting death with a gentle smile. He saw it not as an end to fear, but as a natural process, a ripened olive falling from the tree, just part of the season. Seneca advised friends to rehearse death to truly value life. He wrote we should live as if on a journey, carrying only what we need, ready to depart at any moment. This isn't about despair, it's liberation. It frees you from the petty anxieties that swell to fill an imagined eternity. When you remember your time is finite, you stop wasting it on things that don't align with your deepest values. The Stoics had a name for this, Memento Mori. Remember you must die, a philosophical exercise. Some kept a symbolic object in view, a small stone skull, a ring with an inscription, not a grim decoration but a focal point. A physical anchor for the mind's most important check. Every glance was a silent recalibration. Is what I'm doing right now worthy of my limited breath? This practice fuels action. It turns procrastination into an absurdity. Why postpone the meaningful conversation, the creative project, the act of kindness when tomorrow isn't guaranteed? It also quiets the noise of social competition. The scramble for status or possessions loses its grip against that ultimate horizon, so consider a modern version. It doesn't require a skull on your desk. It could be a single notification on your phone, a note on your bathroom mirror, a specific tree you pass on your daily walk, designated as your Memento Mori. Let it be a trigger for a brief, daily reflection, not a long meditation on darkness, but a quick, clarifying lens. Look at your to-do list through it. How many items would vanish? How many would suddenly scream for your attention? This leads to the most potent question. If you knew you would die 1 month from today, what would you stop doing immediately? The complaints, the gossip, the endless scrolling, the holding of grudges, the fear of what others think. And what would you start? The long postponed trip, the difficult apology, the book you want to write, the quiet afternoons with people you love just listening. Your answers are a compass. They point to the life you're meant to be living, buried under the life you've accumulated by habit. The daily remembrance of the end is paradoxically the tool that shows you how to begin. His owner could set his schedule, but not where his mind went. That was the last thing he could control. Epictetus saw time as the one thing you can't get back. The only place you ever are is right now. Your body could be doing a task, but your mind could be somewhere else, stuck on some old grievance or afraid of what might happen next. That kind of mental wandering, that was a worse kind of slavery. To really own your time meant owning your attention, in this moment, the only one you can ever actually touch. Seneca wrote about this in a letter called On the Shortness of Life. His point was that life is long enough if you use it right. The trouble is we waste so much of it. Not on rest, but on hesitation, on busy work that goes nowhere, on fretting over things we can't change. We live as if we have a limitless supply of tomorrows, putting off what's important for a day that might not come. He noticed that people are careful with their money, but reckless with their time, the one thing that, once it's gone, you can never get more of. For a Stoic, the only good way to spend that finite resource is on action that builds virtue. Any minute lost to anger or anxiety or resentment or just drifting, that's a piece of your life you paid out and got nothing back. It's like enslaving yourself, handing your most valuable asset over to things that don't make you any better. Think about now, you have an hour free. One option is to open an app and scroll. That's usually a passive spend. You're giving your attention, which is your life, minute by minute, to a feed of other people's highlights and arguments and ads. You might feel plugged in, but often you end up feeling a bit empty, measuring your own reality against everyone else's show. The hour disappears. What did you build inside yourself? Now take that same hour or even 10 minutes of it, use it for focused thought. Read a page of something serious and sit with it. Write a few lines in a journal to untangle your mind. Go for a walk with the simple goal of just seeing the world without any opinion. That's an investment. You're putting that slice of your life into your own understanding, your own calm. The time passes either way, but one transaction leaves you poorer, the other leaves you richer. So here's a simple check. Look back at the last hour. How did you use it? Be honest. Was it an investment or an expenditure? Did those minutes mostly serve your growth, your peace, your duties? Or did they just leak away into distraction or worry or idle noise? This isn't about blaming rest. Rest is necessary. It's about seeing the trade. Are you choosing how to spend your life, or are you letting your habits and distractions choose for you? Epictetus, in his narrow world, turned every chore into a chance to be present. Carrying water became practice in focus. Following an order became a drill in doing a duty with full attention. He couldn't control the clock, but he could control the quality of his mind with every tick. That's the real mastery of time. It's not about managing a calendar. It's about living inside your moments with such awareness and purpose that none of your life is ever really lost. It all gets turned into the substance of who you are. He might have thanked his master silently for the chance to practice patience. That's the advanced stage of reframing. It's not just seeing the obstacle as the path. It's welcoming it as a teacher, a necessary instructor for the soul you're trying to build. Marcus Aurelius did this in his private journal. He wrote about giving thanks. even for illnesses, because they forced him to reflect on his own mortality, on the fragility of the body. They pulled him back from distraction, reminded him of what truly mattered. He saw them not as punishments but as lessons, harsh lessons but essential. This is gratitude turned inside out. It's not gratitude for the pleasant things. It's gratitude for the friction, because friction is what sharpens the blade. A life without resistance makes for a soft character, a weak will. The challenges, the difficult people, the setbacks, these are the weights. In the gym of your virtue, you don't thank the weight for being heavy. You thank it for making you stronger, because without its resistance, growth is impossible. So how do you practice this? You can start with a simple exercise, almost radical. Take a current problem, a source of stress, write it a thank you note. Not sarcastically, sincerely, address it directly. Dear persistent work stress, or dear difficult family dynamic, or dear financial uncertainty. Then list specifically what it is teaching you. Is it teaching you resilience by forcing you to adapt? Is it teaching you creativity by blocking your usual paths? Is it teaching you humility by showing you your limits? Is it teaching you to ask for help, to set boundaries, to prioritize with ruthless clarity? Each lesson is a strength being forged. The problem is the blacksmith. Your thank you note acknowledges the service. It transforms your relationship to the hardship from one of resistance to one of partnership. You are not battling an enemy. You are apprenticing with a stern master. Here is your challenge. Identify one ongoing difficulty in your life right now. It doesn't have to be monumental. It could be a tedious commute, a tense relationship at the office, a creative project that feels stuck. Now list 3 potential gifts it contains, 3 lessons it is uniquely positioned to teach you. If the commute is long and frustrating, its gift might be forced audiobook time for learning, or a daily drill in patience, or a chance to observe the world from your car window, practicing presence. If the office relationship is tense, its gift might be a masterclass in diplomacy, in emotional regulation, in communicating with clarity under pressure. The project that's stuck, its gift is the necessity of perseverance, of breaking tasks down into tiny, manageable steps, of learning when to push and when to step away. By searching for these hidden curricula, you stop being a victim of the circumstance and you start being a student of it. And in that shift, the difficulty hasn't changed. But its power over your peace has been broken. Epictetus talked about gossip and frivolous news. He saw them as flies at the gate, more than just noise. They were contaminants for the inner court of the mind. He practiced a strict mental hygiene. He decided with care which impressions were worthy of entry. Which conversations. He taught that we aren't disturbed by events, but by the views we take of them. So the most critical defense is at the point of entry. He had this analogy: the mind is a fortress, it can only be breached from within. No external event can force its way in and create turmoil. Turmoil only happens when we open the gate ourselves. When we assent, when we judge that this gossip matters, or that someone's opinion defines our worth, we lower the drawbridge, we let the invader storm the walls. That's the defensive discipline. It's not about building higher walls against the world. It's about posting a more vigilant guard at your own gate. This translates to modern mental hygiene. It's the practice of curation. You curate your physical space, your social media feed, your home, but you curate the content flowing into your mind with the same intention. Consider the first hour of your day. Do you open a news app and let a stream of conflict and crisis be the first guest in your mental space? That's not being informed. That's voluntarily inviting anxiety to sit at your breakfast table. The Stoic approach would be to choose a single, reliable source for essential information. Consumed at a designated time for a limited duration, you take in what you need to navigate the world responsibly, but you refuse to let the entire world's chaos take up residence in your head. The same principle applies to conversations. You have a colleague whose sole mode of interaction is complaint, or cynicism, or gossip. Engaging deeply in that exchange is like letting them dump their mental trash in your living room. Setting a boundary here isn't rude, it's an act of stewardship. You can listen with detached compassion, offer a neutral response, and gracefully redirect the conversation. Or exit it. You are guarding the gate, so pause, consider your own mental gates. What are the most common thought invaders you've allowed past your guard? Is it the constant, silent scroll of comparison, measuring your real life against the highlight reels of others? Is it the worry about what a particular person thinks of you, giving their private opinion a permanent seat at your table? Is it the recycling of a past mistake, a story you replay so often it has worn a path in your mind? Name your top invader. Just naming it gives you power. It moves it from a vague cloud of unease to a specific entity, one you can now choose to deny entry. Tonight, as you review your day, ask not just what you did, but what you let in, and tomorrow, for just one day, post a more watchful guard. See what peace you can preserve. Simply by being more selective about who gets an invitation, and what gets an invitation to your inner court. The water jug wasn't carried for praise. It was carried to carry it well. In every task, Epictetus found a purpose, and that purpose had nothing to do with the owner's reaction. That's the heart of it. Process over outcome. For a Stoic, the only true good is a virtuous will. The attempt itself, if done with excellence, with right intention, that's a complete success. The external result, whether the water was received with thanks or a scowl, whether the jug was even needed, that was classified as an indifferent. It couldn't add or subtract from the moral worth of the action. Your job is to pilot the ship with skill. The wind, the waves, the final port, those aren't yours to command. The good lies in the piloting, in the quality of your effort moment by moment. Arrian recorded Epictetus using that exact analogy. In a sailing voyage, what is the captain's work? To keep watch, to manage the sailors, to navigate by the stars. That's within his power, but a storm may arise. The ship could be blown off course. The captain who does everything rightly, yet still loses the ship, has not failed in his work. He succeeded in his duty. The loss of the ship is a misfortune, but not a moral failure. His virtue remained intact because it was located in the process, not the outcome. This detachment isn't apathy. It's the deepest form of engagement with what you can actually affect. It frees you to pour your entire soul into the action. Because you're no longer hostage to a result you can't guarantee. Bring this into a modern project. You're preparing a major presentation at work. The outcome you desire is a successful launch, client approval, a promotion. All of that depends on other people's decisions, market conditions, 100 variables. If you tie your sense of accomplishment to that outcome, you set yourself up for anxiety during the preparation and potential devastation if it doesn't go perfectly. The Stoic shift is to redefine success. Your success becomes the thoroughness of your research, the clarity of your slides, the hours of thoughtful practice, the courage to present your ideas with conviction. These elements are within your sphere of control. You can succeed in these completely, regardless of the final verdict. The presentation becomes an end in itself, an expression of your professionalism and diligence. The client's reaction then becomes feedback, not a judgment of your worth. So here's a reflective prompt. Identify one goal you're actively pursuing right now. It could be a fitness target, a creative endeavor, a relationship aim, a professional milestone. Now draw a clear line of separation. On one side, list all the actions that constitute the process. These are your inputs, your daily practice, your study, your honest communication, your consistent effort. On the other side, list the desired outcome. The weight on the scale, the finished book deal, the repaired connection, the job title. See them as separate territories. Your sovereignty, your arena for excellence, is solely the first list. Your peace of mind must be planted there. Commit to judging your days only by the quality of your effort in that territory. Did you engage fully with the process today? If so, you've already won what is truly yours to win. The rest is in the hands of the wind. A Roman household ran on a strict order, but Epictetus, he looked past the titles. He saw the slave and the cook, the visiting merchant, the master, not by their roles. He saw their shared nature. Each one breathed. Each one felt pain, hoped, reasoned. This wasn't sentiment, it was a discipline, a Stoic principle called oikeiosis, the idea of a natural affinity, that we're born with a seed of connection to other rational beings. Because we all share a fragment of the same universal reason. To see this is to see past the costume, to see the actor underneath. Marcus Aurelius drilled this into himself. He wrote to remember that the person who does you wrong is still your kin, not by blood but in humanity. They share the same sky, the same earth, the same spark of reason. However obscured, to be angry, he said, is to forget that fact. It's to treat them as an obstacle, not as a fellow traveler who's lost their way. This daily recognition, it was a powerful ego reducer. In a world that told Epictetus he was property, it quietly affirmed he was a person, and that every other person, regardless of their power, was equally fragile. Equally subject to error and suffering. You can practice this in ordinary friction. You're in a long, slow line at the store. The person ahead is fumbling with coupons, holding everyone up. The first impression is irritation. They're incompetent or selfish. Now apply the lens. See them not as an obstacle, but as a human. Maybe they're anxious about money, counting each cent. Maybe their hands are shaky with age. Maybe they're having a difficult day, and this errand is the last thread. It doesn't make the line move faster, but it changes your experience of the weight. Your irritation softens into patience, maybe even a silent well-wishing. You've reconnected them to the circle of shared humanity. Your frustration had exiled them from it. Here's a more direct exercise for personal conflict. Think of someone you find difficult, a colleague, a neighbor, a relative. Someone whose actions spark annoyance. Now set aside your story about them. From their perspective, list 3 plausible reasons for their behavior, not excuses but reasons. Articulate the internal logic, however flawed, that might drive them. Perhaps they act from deep insecurity. Their arrogance is a shield. Perhaps they're overwhelmed by responsibilities they never chose. Their shortness is exhaustion, not malice. Perhaps they're repeating patterns learned in a childhood without better models. This exercise isn't about absolving harmful behavior. It's about understanding its source, and in that understanding you reclaim your power. You're no longer just reacting to a villain in your story. You're observing a complex human in their own struggle. This shift doesn't always resolve the conflict, but it always changes you. It replaces the heat of judgment with a clearer light, the light of insight. And in that light, your own path forward becomes easier to see. His possessions fit in a corner, a sleeping mat, a cloak, a wooden bowl, that was it. And in that bareness, Epictetus saw an advantage. He saw each thing not as a comfort, but as a possible chain. A chain you could break through understanding. He wrote that freedom isn't given by a master. You win it by needing very little, by being satisfied with some water, a simple bed, rough clothing. Because if that's enough, then nothing outside you can ever really hold you. Your happiness isn't tied to things that can be taken. This is the practice of simplification. It's a daily audit, a look at what you depend on. Every attachment to a luxury, every reliance on a comfort, every habit of convenience, each one is a thread. And if enough threads get pulled, your sense of self can come undone. But if you reduce those threads on purpose, you weave a different self, one held together from the inside. One that stays whole no matter what the outside world does. This isn't poverty for its own sake. It's about sovereignty. It's asking, with everything you own or want, does this serve me or do I serve it? Does it expand my freedom, or does it quietly ask for my attention, my maintenance, my worry? A luxury car isn't just a car. It's insurance payments, fear of dents, anxiety about parking, a pressure to appear a certain way. That's a lot of space in your mind. Epictetus owned nothing, and he found his mind could be a palace precisely because it wasn't full of furniture. So how do you start this audit now in a world of abundance? Try a practical rule, the one in, one out rule. For every new thing you bring home, one old thing has to leave. That forces a choice. It makes you weigh the new thing against something you already have. It slows the accumulation. It builds a habit of curation, not just collection. Or try a digital detox day. One day a week, maybe, where you don't stream entertainment. Where the constant input of content stops, you'll probably feel a restless itch. That itch is the dependency, that's the chain. Sitting with that restlessness, finding other things to do, reading, walking, writing, talking, that's the practice of breaking it. You prove to yourself your peace doesn't need that particular plug. Now look around the room you're in. Let your eyes land on one object, not something cherished or a vital tool. Something ordinary, a decorative item gathering dust, a book you won't read again, a gadget you haven't used in months. Find one thing you could give away tomorrow, without any real loss to your happiness. In fact, its absence might make a small pocket of space, a quiet clarity. That simple act of letting go isn't just about clearing a shelf. It's a vote for a self that's defined by what it can release, not by what it holds onto. And with each vote, the fortress of your contentment gets stronger from within. Epictetus had this kind of superpower of attention. He was never mentally absent from his own life. His body would be doing a task, but his mind stayed right there, watching the judgments form in real time. That continuous awareness, the Stoics called it prosauch. It's the foundational discipline. It's the thread that ties every other practice together. Without it, philosophy is just a theory you admire. With it, every moment becomes a conscious choice. Later Stoic thinkers kept saying this. You need constant vigilance over what they called the ruling center, the core of your judgment. Epictetus warned that we have to attend to our impressions. They're the raw material of our happiness or our misery. He said we have to watch over ourselves like an enemy lying in wait. That sounds intense, but it's just the practice of noticing the automatic stories your mind creates before you believe them. It's catching the thought, this is terrible, and asking, is it truly? Before you let that feeling settle in, this isn't about constant strain. It's a gentle, returning awareness, like a shepherd tending sheep. Your job is to notice when your attention, your flock, has wandered off into the past or the future, and to guide it back. Back to the present pasture. A modern, practical way to do this is to set random, gentle alarms on your phone throughout the day, not for tasks, for check-ins. When the alarm sounds, it's not a call to action. It's a call to awareness. Pause for just 5 seconds. Ask yourself, where is my mind right now? What judgment am I currently holding? Am I present with what I'm doing, or am I lost in a story about something else? That tiny interruption breaks the autopilot. It's a reset button for your attention, pulling you back to the only moment you can ever actually influence. So here's a direct challenge, a 1-hour experiment. For the next 60 minutes, try to notice every single time your mind wanders away from the present. Don't judge it, don't try to stop it, just notice the departure. See it travel to a regret about yesterday or an anxiety about tomorrow. Each time you catch it, you've just exercised prosauch. You've just strengthened the muscle of presence. That simple, repeated act of noticing, that's how you stop sleepwalking through your days. It's how you start to truly inhabit your life. Moment by conscious moment, just as Epictetus learned to do in his. Epictetus taught from a place of learning. He guided emperors, but he spoke as a student. He always pointed back to Socrates, to Zeno, to the thinkers who came before him. That wasn't just modesty, it was the method. the starting point for wisdom is admitting what you don't know. If you think you've arrived, if you believe you've mastered virtue, you stop growing. You have to stay open. You have to be willing to be corrected, even by people you might lead. Epictetus was clear about his own efforts. He said he wasn't a sage, just someone trying. He thanked his teachers not for answers, but for showing him how to question his own views. That humility is where understanding starts. Philosophy isn't a trophy. It's a practice. You're always an apprentice. Think about feedback at work. When you hear criticism, what happens? You might tense up, you might start preparing your defense. That reaction is a wall. It keeps the truth away. The Stoic approach is different. You treat feedback as information. Even if it's delivered badly, it's a chance to see a blind spot. You ask calmly, is there something useful here? You separate the message from the tone of the person giving it. This works for ideas too. We live inside our own views. Our feeds show us what we already agree with. The exercise is to step outside of that. Read something thoughtful from a perspective you disagree with. Don't argue with it in your head while you read. Try to understand its internal logic. See the world through that other lens just for a little while. This isn't about giving up what you believe, it's about testing it. A belief that can't be examined is hollow. So here's a challenge. Pick one belief you hold strongly. It could be about politics or work or how to live. Then find one credible argument against it. Read it with the goal of understanding, not of winning. Your job isn't to change your mind. It's to understand the other side so well you could explain it fairly to someone else. That act is intellectual humility. It's what Epictetus did. It means your mind isn't a closed fortress, it's an open space, and that openness is the only way to grow wiser than you were before. The practices weren't separate items to check off, they were one continuous act of shaping, day after day. Over time, Epictetus didn't just practice Stoicism. He became it, the morning reflection, that pause before agreeing to a thought, accepting difficulty. These stopped being exercises, they merged, they became his character. His automatic way of moving through the world. That's integration, the final stage, where philosophy stops being something you learn and starts being what you are. The Stoics viewed virtue as a skill, like archery. At first, you think through every step, your stance, your grip, your aim, the release. It's awkward. It's conscious, but with daily, relentless practice, the skill sinks into your bones. The archer and the bow become one thing. The release is instinct. The target is hit without a chain of deliberate thoughts. For Epictetus, the target was a life of excellence. No matter the circumstance, and through thousands of daily repetitions, his responses became that instinct. A harsh word didn't trigger a spiral of anger, it triggered detached observation. A setback didn't invite despair, it invited a quiet question: what does this make possible? The routine had woven itself into his identity. Think about learning to drive. The first lessons are overwhelming. You're consciously coordinating the mirror, the signal, the clutch, the gear, the traffic. Every action is a separate, effortful decision. But after years of practice, you don't do driving. You are a driver. You navigate complex traffic while having a conversation. Your competent responses flow without conscious command. The skill has become part of you. The goal of the Stoic routine is that same transformation. Moving from consciously practicing patience to being a patient person, from exercising courage to being a courageous presence. The discrete practices, the mental filter, the gratitude, the memento mori, those are the repetitions. The thousands of shots at the target, and one day you realize you're not aiming anymore. You're simply hitting the mark by nature, so look at your own reactions. In moments of stress, what's your automatic setting? Is it complaint or is it a search for agency? Is it defensiveness or is it curious listening? Your automatic responses are your current character revealed. The routine is the tool for rewriting those defaults. Which single practice, if it became as automatic as breathing, would most reshape your character? Would it be the daily pause before reacting, creating a permanent space between event and emotion? Would it be the nightly audit, making honest self-reflection an unskippable part of your day? Or would it be the simple filter of control, so you instinctively invest your energy only where it can actually grow? Choose one, and commit to its repetition not as a task but as the craft of becoming. His owner died and the empire forgot about him, but the ideas from those disciplined mornings they lived on. Epictetus, a slave who owned nothing, he became a teacher to emperors. His student, Arion, he did something. He didn't build a statue, he wrote the words down. He preserved his teacher's voice in two works, the Discourses and the Enchiridion, the handbook. Those pages, filled with a lifetime of routine, they traveled farther than any Roman legion. They ended up on the desk of Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, guiding his hand. They consoled prisoners, they fortified leaders, they offered a map for inner freedom to anyone feeling trapped. This is the paradox of true power. It isn't dominion over land or people. It's sovereignty over yourself, and once you have that, it can inspire sovereignty in others for centuries. His legacy wasn't carved in stone. It was etched in the daily choices of millions who came after. The Enchiridion is a product of that daily filter. Its opening line, "Some things are up to us, some are not," that's not a philosophical proposition. It's a report from a lifetime of drawing that line at dawn. Every lesson in it is a polished stone from the riverbed of his practice. The power of the ideas is in their origin. They weren't theorized in a comfortable library. They were forged in the friction of a life that wasn't his own. So they speak with an undeniable authority to anyone who's ever felt limited. Now consider your own sphere of influence. It might feel small, a family, a team, a circle of friends. The parallel is this: by mastering yourself within your own difficult circumstances, you become a quiet beacon. Not because you preach, but because you embody a different way. Your calm in a crisis, your integrity under pressure, your resilience after a setback, these are your discourses. They are the living text others read. When you choose patience instead of anger, you're writing a line in someone else's handbook. When you meet hardship with grace, you're demonstrating that freedom is an internal condition. Your legacy of character is being built not in a single grand gesture, but in the accumulation of these small, daily victories over your own weaker impulses. So pause, reflect. What is the text of your life teaching those who observe you? What habits are you engraving so deeply that they will outlive you, not as possessions passed down, but as a remembered presence, a way of being that offered others a glimpse of their own possible strength? The slave left no fortune, no estate. He left a question echoing through time. If he could build a free mind in chains, what might you build with yours? The most powerful slave in history owned nothing but his own mind. That's the final lesson. His power wasn't given to him. He forged it in the quiet furnace of daily, disciplined choice. Every morning, drawing that line between what was his and what was not. Every moment, pausing before he agreed to a judgment. Every evening, holding his actions up to the light of his principles. That was his routine, not a schedule of tasks but a relentless architecture of the soul, and it built three unshakable pillars: mental sovereignty, through the clear-eyed filter of the dichotomy of control; resilience, through the voluntary embrace of life's friction; and integrity, through the nightly audit that turned every day into a lesson. This is the blueprint. Not for escaping your circumstances, but for building an inner citadel so strong that your circumstances lose their power to define you. It's a design for internal freedom. Applicable to any life in any era. Epictetus left a final word on this. He said, "No one is free who is not master of himself, and no one can chain the mind unless the mind itself forges the links." So true power isn't about first changing the world around you. It's about mastering the world within. That mastery begins with a single choice, a single practice. Which one will you choose tomorrow? Will it be the morning reflection, claiming your mental sovereignty before the day begins? The discipline of assent, creating that crucial pause between an event and your reaction? Or the evening review, turning your experiences into wisdom? Choose one, just one, commit to it for tomorrow, and if you feel so moved, share your commitment in the comments below. Let's build a community of practice, supporting each other in the quiet work of becoming. For more guides to turn ancient wisdom into daily strength, consider subscribing. The journey toward a freer mind continues with your very next choice.